World War II was filled with brutal battles, secret missions, and classified operations. But among all the chaos of war, there exists one incident so strange, so unexplained, that even military commanders struggled to make sense of it. This was not a defeat caused by enemy fire, not a strategic miscalculation, and not a conventional ambush. It was a mystery that seemed to defy the very logic of warfare. Reports described an entire military unit disappearing without a trace. No signs of combat, no bodies, no clear enemy engagement, just abandoned equipment, silent battlefields, and unanswered questions. At first, commanders assumed it was a simple communication failure. Then came the witness accounts, stories that didn't match official explanations. Soldiers spoke of strange conditions, confusing orders, and moments where reality itself seemed distorted. As days passed, panic grew within the ranks. How could trained soldiers vanish in the middle of an active war zone? The military quickly realized that this incident could not be explained using standard war doctrine, and so the reports were classified. Files were sealed, details were restricted, and the truth was buried under layers of secrecy. But decades later, fragments of those records would resurface, hinting at a story far more disturbing than anyone had imagined. This was the beginning of one of World War II's most baffling mysteries. In the days following the incident, military headquarters demanded answers. What they received instead was confusion. Initial field reports contradicted one another. Some documents mentioned enemy contact. Others made no reference to combat at all. Even more disturbing was what came next. Key evidence began to disappear. Maps were altered. Timelines no longer matched. Entire pages from official reports were missing. When investigators attempted to reconstruct the events, they found gaps, critical hours unaccounted for, radio logs erased, and eyewitness statements quietly removed from the record. This was no accident. High-ranking officers ordered the incident reclassified under top-secret status. Access was restricted to a small circle within military intelligence. Those who asked too many questions were reassigned. Those who persisted were silenced by bureaucracy. Yet, despite the secrecy, fragments of the truth remained. A few declassified documents hinted at something unusual, references to unidentified conditions, unexpected environmental factors, and losses without engagement. Phrases carefully chosen, details deliberately vague. The official explanation failed to satisfy even the investigators themselves. If this was a simple battlefield loss, why erase the evidence? Why manipulate the records? And why was the truth considered too dangerous to release? As the investigation stalled, one fact became increasingly clear. Whatever happened on that battlefield was not meant to be understood, only forgotten. But history has a way of resurfacing buried secrets, and this mystery was far from over. As the investigation deepened, attention turned to the men at the center of the mystery, the soldiers themselves. They were experienced, well-trained, and familiar with the terrain. Yet none of that explained what happened next. Entire positions were found abandoned. Weapons lay untouched. Personal belongings remained where they had last been used, as if their owners had vanished mid-moment. No signs of a struggle, no blood, no bodies. Survivors from nearby units reported something deeply unsettling. They spoke of sudden silence on the battlefield, communications cut without warning, orders given, then abruptly contradicted. Some claimed they saw figures moving through heavy fog. Others described an unnatural stillness, as if time itself had slowed. One soldier recalled hearing voices over the radio that didn't match any known unit. another reported receiving commands that were never officially issued. Within days, these accounts were dismissed as stress-induced confusion. But the numbers told a different story. Dozens of soldiers were officially listed as missing in action. No remains were ever recovered. No prisoners of war were reported by the enemy. Families were given vague explanations. Records were marked incomplete, and the names were quietly added to the long list of the war's unresolved losses. Yet among military investigators, one question refused to fade. How do trained soldiers disappear without a trace during a war where every movement is recorded? The battlefield offered no answers, only silence. And that silence was more disturbing than any gunfire. With no clear explanation and growing pressure from command, the military launched a formal investigation. A special unit was assembled: intelligence officers, field analysts, and counterintelligence specialists. Their mission was simple on paper: determine what happened and prevent it from happening again. But from the very beginning, this investigation was different. Access to the site was limited. Surviving witnesses were questioned under strict supervision. Every statement was reviewed, edited, and approved before being archived. Investigators quickly realized they were not just searching for facts, they were navigating restrictions. Certain areas of inquiry were discouraged, specific questions were left unanswered, and some lines of investigation were abruptly shut down. Still, patterns began to emerge. Timelines revealed synchronized failures, communications collapsing across multiple units at the same moment. Weather reports described sudden, unexplained atmospheric changes. Command logs showed orders issued, then rescinded without explanation. Most troubling of all were the internal memos. They warned of non-standard operational conditions. They referenced unknown variables, and they recommended that the findings remain classified indefinitely. As weeks passed, the investigation reached a quiet conclusion. No enemy responsibility was confirmed. No mechanical failure was identified. No human error could fully explain the event. The final report offered a sanitized summary, carefully worded, deliberately incomplete. Officially, the case was closed. Unofficially, many of the investigators knew the truth had never been found. Or worse, that it had been found, but deemed too dangerous to acknowledge. With official explanations falling apart, alternative theories began to surface, quietly at first, then with growing urgency. Some investigators suspected experimental enemy technology, weapons so advanced they left no physical trace, devices designed not to destroy, but to erase. Others believed the truth was far more internal: a classified operation gone wrong, a command failure too embarrassing to admit, or a decision made at the highest level, followed by a deliberate cover-up. Then there were the more unsettling possibilities. Unidentified aerial phenomena reported in the area, strange atmospheric disturbances, sudden fog formations that appeared and vanished without warning. These reports were quickly dismissed, labeled unreliable, filed away, and forgotten. Yet the suppression itself raised questions. Why silence certain witnesses? Why seal documents for decades? Why destroy records instead of correcting them? The deeper analysts looked, the clearer it became. The investigation was never meant to uncover the full truth. It was meant to control the narrative. By the end of the war, the mystery had been buried beneath victory reports, political priorities, and a world eager to move on. But not everyone forgot. Historians, researchers, and former intelligence officers would later revisit the case, finding the same gaps, the same contradictions, the same unanswered questions. Whatever happened during those moments of World War II did not fit the story of war as it was meant to be told, and that may be the most disturbing conclusion of all. Decades have passed since the war ended. Borders have changed, empires have fallen, but this mystery remains. Despite declassified files and modern research, the core questions still have no answers, no definitive explanation, no final truth. What happened to the soldiers who vanished? Why was no physical evidence ever recovered? And why did the military choose silence over clarity? Historians continue to analyze the fragments, partial reports, redacted documents, and testimonies once dismissed as unreliable. When placed together, they form a picture that is incomplete, yet deeply unsettling. Modern technology has allowed researchers to revisit the battlefield conditions. Weather data, communication failures, and command structures have all been re-examined. And still, nothing fully explains the event. Perhaps the truth was lost in the chaos of war. Perhaps it was intentionally hidden. Or perhaps it challenges our understanding of what is possible, even in wartime. What is certain is this: not all casualties are counted, not all battles are recorded, and not all mysteries are meant to be solved. World War II reshaped history, but it also left behind shadows. Shadows that continue to haunt the past and remind us that even the most powerful military investigations can sometimes uncover only one thing: how much remains unknown.